Well, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time to participate in this.
Thank you, guys. I'm really excited to be here. I love the work you do.
Thanks. Well, you have provided us the platform to do it, so thank you.
Yes.
This is my first podcast interview, so be gracious to me.
Oh, we will. But you've sat in on the ones that Jose's done, because I've listened to those and you're in there chiming in.
Sometimes.
You just weren't like the super celebrity.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, today
not
you're
been
the
the
super
guest.
celebrity, so congrats.
I've been the interviewer. I've not been the interviewee.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna do great. Okay, we're recording. This is live now, Ashley. Okay.
Well, it's not really live, but here we go.
Okay. Well, here we are for another episode of Shut Up and Listen
Small Town Stories
with Sarah.
and Renee.
Okay, Sarah, I have to tell you, I am super excited about this episode.
Me too.
I enjoy a lot of our episodes, but this one holds a special place in my heart.
I'm pretty excited too, because any of our listeners, especially in our first couple episodes, should be familiar with Co-Starters because we've talked about it.
Yes.
Pretty much at length. We talk about it out in our community a lot.
Yes.
So today we have a really special guest with us. We have Rebekah Marr, who is the co-founder and now also the chief product officer for Co-Starters. So Rebekah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Rebekah's joining us via Zoom because she is based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we've had the privilege to work with you and meet you virtually. I can't say we've ever been in the same room together that I know of. In 2020, when we initially became a Co-Starter community, and you have really helped support us over the last 3+ years in our kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem building journey, which Co-Starters has been just tremendously instrumental in that. So we're super excited that you're here today. So welcome. And we want to start with just giving you the opportunity to just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a history in community leadership and community building. So we would really love to hear kind of your journey and then how you came to be one of the co-founders of Co-Starters.
Yeah. I actually found myself in Chattanooga, Tennessee for college and then wound up staying. I didn't study anything related to business. I studied history and philosophy and then wound up getting a job with a private foundation here in town. And so I really got to understand kind of what was going on with the nonprofits in the community and the surrounding area. And really kind of fell in love with helping organizations become impactful and sustainable. And so I worked at the foundation for about 7 years and then left to start a consulting business where I was working with organizations to help them just get better at what they were doing and achieving their local missions. And I worked with communities both in Chattanooga and outside through that work. And kind of as I was leaving the foundation, I found myself starting a business, and I had never started a business before. As I said, I didn't study it in college. I didn't know what that all entailed. And a friend of mine was working with this organization called the Company Lab. And I heard they helped people start businesses. And so I called him up and I said, "Hey, Sheldon, I hear you can help people. Can you help me?" And he said, "Yeah, meet Enoch. He'll get you registered in this course and we'll get you all set up." And so I actually personally went through the predecessor of what became Co-Starters as an entrepreneur. And got to experience kind of the magic that happens when you put a bunch of people who are really passionate about their ideas in a room together, and let them work through those as a community, and see what happens out of that. And so I came to it as an entrepreneur. At the end of the day, it was all stuff I probably could have figured out on my own, but it was really nice to have somebody taking me through that process, having other people asking questions. A lot of my first clients actually wound up being people in the room. And then down the road, they came back to me. And funny enough, I traded for my seat. So they used to let us barter. And they said, "Your fee is this." And I was like, "I'm kind of between, I'm just getting started." And they were like, "What can you do?" And I said, "I know how to write grants." And they were like, "Great." got you down for that. Turned out I gave them 5 times worth what the seat was that they gave me in exchange. I figured that out by the end of the program. But it allowed me to give back to the community. They called me a few months later and said, hey, we've got this major grant due in 5 days. Can you help us out? And so I kind of fell in with the organization in that way of helping them with their grants. And then when the opportunity came up, Enoch said, hey, all this stuff we've been doing in our community, we want to take it national. Any chance you'd be interested in helping with that? And so I was really excited. We had a different program prior to this. We had learned some interesting things in supporting startups about kind of what they call the lean startup method, which is using that canvas to kind of work out your ideas. The other course was like traditional business planning. And so we wanted to take the new methods and apply them to Main Street businesses. And the everyday type of business, all the stuff that was happening with the tech. And so that's kind of how I got involved, was on a 3-month project that's been 10 years now.
I love those kind of projects.
So you referenced Enoch, and that was a reference to Enoch Elwell, who is the other co-founder. Was it just the two of you that really sat down and kind of took what was happening at the collab and then, grew that and then made it into Co-Starters, or were there others involved?
There were definitely some others involved. We had another girl that was working with us early on kind of the curriculum development. I mentioned Sheldon was my college friend who was working with Enoch. There were a lot of people involved in the early days, but kind of as we looked to grow past Chattanooga, some people went on to other things. And so Enoch and I were the ones who really just stayed with it. We had some other people join later as well. So it's a very complicated startup history. Also because we incubated for a few years under that other organization before we split out officially. But it was definitely a team effort. But there were a lot of people that helped make us who we are today.
So we know what Co-Starters is because we facilitate it here in Fostoria. But how would you describe Co-Starters to someone that is just being introduced to the concept?
So we work with local organizations to help them equip their entrepreneurs and grow, start, and sustain new businesses. Mm-hmm. So we love working with people like Fostoria Chamber of Commerce, who really are passionate about seeing people in their community be able to realize their dreams. And so because we work at a national level, we kind of have a bird's eye view of what's going on, what works, what doesn't work. And so we see ourselves as kind of a learning organization as well. We take the best practices, what is working, and help package that up so that other communities don't have to do that guessing game of trying to figure it all out, all on their own. So we try to make your jobs easier. And in turn, we get a chance to work with, at this point, I think we've worked with 25,000 entrepreneurs through our partner network.
That's fantastic.
Phenomenal. But one of the things that I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention is you talk about working with the organizations and how you make it easier for the organizations. But realistically, we're now doing our 6th cohort?
Yes.
And you have taken and developed a program that makes starting a business and exploring your ideas so user-friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, you break it down in such an understanding way that literally anyone, we've had people that, we did the generator program with the youth. Mm-hmm. And so we've worked with everyone from 6th graders to people.
We have people that are in retirement and have come back and taken it to, kind of launch a second career.
And they come in the first week and nobody knows what they're getting into. And so they're like, oh, well. And then, you start talking about the canvas and things like that. And then by week 7, they've gotten so comfortable and they've finally realized we could do this. Mm-hmm. And that's when it really gets scary, because that's when you're talking about the numbers and, using calculators. And that's when I would get scared.
Mm-hmm. And it's also been really fun to watch. We fell in love. We actually came across Co-Starters. We were fortunate enough to be part of a grant program.
that allowed us to travel to Seattle to the National Main Street Conference, where I sat in a session and heard Enoch speak about co-starters. And it was exactly what we had been searching for. We knew we wanted to develop entrepreneurs. We were looking for just a model, a pathway, a program, something, anything we could use to really simplify that process. And then I believe it was the same conference or the next one we had attended where I had a chance to speak with some people that were involved in Wheeling, West Virginia, who have been doing some really phenomenal things in their community. And they were tapped into co-starters. So I asked them a million questions, got some great information, and came home and basically said, we're doing this. There's no way around it. We got to find the funds. We're going to do this. But part of the selling point of the program really was it really builds community. And we looked at that and thought, okay, fine. You know, people are always trying to sell us things, and oftentimes they oversell and underdeliver. But what I say with co-starters is we really just wanted the curriculum. But all of the other things that you said it would do for our community, it really has done. And it's just been amazing. Our very first cohort, we had a large group. And just watching that group come together and build their own entrepreneur community and support each other and grow. And they're still in relationship with each other and they're still helping each other. So it's been really fun to watch those small communities build and grow as we tap them into the other co-starter entrepreneurs and just continue to watch those relationships grow. It's just been phenomenal. And the personal growth that we've seen in individuals through the course.
It's really funny you say that because it's actually by design that the program does that. It's what we experienced in our own community. So I remember when Enoch and I were first talking about what do we make this curriculum? And he was like, when you sit in the cohort and people start to connect and those ideas start to be exchanged and people start building that confidence, he's like, it just happens automatically, but how do we create the conditions where we do more of that? And so that was a very intentional thing in the design of the curriculum. We constantly were asking ourselves, how do we highlight the thing that will happen naturally and create the conditions so that it happens more? And so that was, I love to hear that that's what's happening because we really, really wanted that to happen because we saw that there's a lot of things out there that can teach you the basics, but to really be successful, you need people. And so you mentioned how simple our curriculum is. Our other two tenets, it's keep it simple, is one of our main core values. The other two are invest in individuals and people, about the people, not the ideas. And the second is in the context of community. So you got to do it together. And so those three things are the things from day one that have really been pushing us as an organization and undergird every single tool we build is how do we make sure we're investing in individuals in the context of community while keeping it simple so that people can really move forward.
Well, you have done it and you've checked all those boxes because we've seen it in every single cohort and it is just, it's what keeps us going. Because sometimes, in community development, it gets a little tough. But facilitating co-starters is one of our favorite things that we get to do. So you had talked about, you started co-starters in the Chattanooga community and you wanted to scale that. What were some of those challenges? Challenges and what surprised you most in that attempt to scale?
Yeah. So, at first we had already shared the model a little bit prior and had some test cases. We were working with a group in Cincinnati and one in Detroit prior to the intentional scaling model. But it was kind of like, here's the stuff, good luck. And so as we were looking to do it more intentionally, some of the things we started to realize was, what does it look like to have a certification and training process? We know who guest speakers are, but how do we communicate that to other people? What are all the other things that go into actually running a program and how do you package that up? People don't see that, you guys know because you're the people running it, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Those emails don't just appear out of nowhere. Those application processes, the promotional materials, all that stuff just doesn't happen automatically. And so a lot of those things of thinking through, like, what does it actually take, were really important. And then as we were growing, we started with the main core program, but as we started growing, we started to realize there were a lot of other things we were doing in our community that were leading to the success of the core program. And so we started looking at what are the other best practices that fed into this and how do we package those? So, for example, one of the things we had going was just this simple, you can sign up for a 30-minute wayfinding meeting and help get pointed in a direction. And as we started to reflect on see things happen in other communities, we were like, oh, this was actually a key piece of what we had going on in our community. So there's been a lot of that, of figuring out what were all the ingredients that made it work. And then also adapting and changing as we've been scaling. So, it's been interesting to figure out, like, what are the core things that actually matter and where can you flex? Because every community has its uniqueness. It's got its spin on what they're trying to do. Each organization does. And so it's been interesting for us, a challenge and a great opportunity to figure out, like, what are the things that are the non-negotiables that we really stand by and we really know, like, if you want to be successful in this work, here's what you need to do. And then we've also been really interested to see, like, what are the things that you can innovate on. And sometimes we've seen other communities innovate, and then we've incorporated that into the main model. We're on our third or fourth revision now of our different programs. And so, it's really been great to be a learning organization that can kind of take that bird's eye view that an individual community might struggle to have, and be able to find those things to help people really move forward.
Don't you think that's part of the reasons that Co-Starters has been so successful? Because you have been able to pivot with the times, and you didn't just develop the original curriculum and say, like you said, here you go, guys, and then not make any changes. Because you see it every day, I'm sure, with the different communities and organizations you work with. You have to be adaptable, because what we're dealing with today may look very different 2 years from now. And the curriculum that you've developed can pivot with the various times.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when we were developing the curriculum, we were constantly pushing ourselves for what's important and what's not. And it was a 3-month project that took a year. I don't think I said that at the beginning. Because we also believe in testing. We don't put anything out there that hasn't been thoroughly tested and piloted and revised, because we want to make sure that what you're getting in your hands as a community works and that there's data to back that.
I'm curious, as a follow-up to that. So if you're developing something new, how do you go about testing it?
That's a great question.
Because we would be interested in being testers.
I'd love for you
Sign
to
me
be
up.
testers.
We love to be guinea pigs. We'll try new
put
things.
you on my guinea pig list. Yes. So usually I try to personally do it just so I can see it break myself. I've learned that if I can't see it break myself, it's much harder to make the changes. So, stupid things. I'm sitting in a session and I'm like, oh, we forgot the nameplates. Like, somebody else wouldn't know that should be something that should be in there, just because I'm like looking for the tool I don't have.
Yeah.
So I always try to pilot it. Like, it might even just be in an outline form, the concept. Pilot it myself if I can, which means I have to have a local partner in a community where I can get to. But then we usually, after that initial, will find 3 to 5 organizations in the network. Usually products are developed because somebody's been asking for it. And that's where we'll start, is kind of with those who were like, hey, do you have... So for example, we just released a new 2-day boot camp version. We had a list of organizations who had kind of been asking for that. Yeah. So when we went to pilot it, we tried it with those 4 organizations that had kind of been making the request. Sometimes we put it out there for anybody who wants to pilot it here, come on in. But if I know there's organizations that are game to try things, and okay, I will keep on my list for the future. But yeah, so we usually do a second round with communities because, as I said, because we're equipping other people to do it. It's one thing for me to know how it's supposed to work, but it's another thing, can I develop a tool that somebody else can use to instruct other people? Like there's several layers there. And so I want to make sure it really works in the hands of the people that need it on both the end user, the entrepreneur, as well as the local organization. But
that was a purely selfish question, so I apologize.
Totally noted. You guys are on my piloting list, so
that's where we want to be. So thank you.
We'll circle back.
Circle back to me on that one.
You see. In the network, in the Co-Starters network, you're in a lot of different communities, but what are you seeing are some of those common obstacles or common issues that you're seeing in communities with entrepreneurial development?
That's a great question. So what common challenges? Are you talking about on the entrepreneur level or on the community level?
Ooh, if you would like to address both, please address both.
Okay.
Because I think they go hand in hand a lot of times.
They do. So on the entrepreneur level, I think there's a couple of things. So, and they do go hand in hand. Sometimes the people that need the help the most don't think of themselves as businesses. And so it's a challenge for them because they don't think to turn to the supports that are existing in the community. Because it's just this side thing. It's this passion I have. It's this project I'm doing on the side. It's, I just love making pottery in my spare time. I like taking pictures, but they have the opportunity to turn it into something more, and they often don't know that. And I think that is something we've seen from day one. A lot of how you have to change your language and your terminology to really reach those people. We've seen differences in, do you want to start a business, sign up for this class, from do you have an idea, do you want to turn your passion into something more, sign up here. That makes a difference in who you reach. Because convincing them they are a business is actually a lot harder than you would think. So I think that's one thing. And I think sometimes communities, to reach back to the community, also don't know that or don't realize that the people that could really do the most and really create some interesting things in a community just aren't resonating with what they're saying they offer as a support organization. So I think that is one challenge we've seen is, kind of changing the approach and where you go, meet them where they're at. Can be really important, both for both sides, and pushing people to be like, no, you are a business. If you want to sell it, you want to sell that pottery you're making, that's a business, even if it's a side business, sometimes that is one thing. I think another thing is, people lack the confidence sometimes to really move those ideas forward. And so that's why we've always found that doing things in groups of people and cohorts is really important, because having that group cheering you on helps build that confidence. And so we see a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneur support where it's just one-off, you're meeting with a mentor, and you're just getting, that validation from one person. And it's really when you get that validation from a lot of people and the community as a whole, that's what causes that change you were talking about earlier, where they go from like, I can't do this, to like, I got this, I'm quitting my day job. And it's really fun to see that. So I think that's another challenge. And again, that kind of falls on a lot of organizations and communities to provide those opportunities to put people in the spotlight and allow people to see the great work that's being done, and help build their confidence that, you can do this. Not only can you do it, you are doing it. So those are some of the challenges I see. The other is just kind of the ongoing nature of learning. So I think you think you're going to just finish a program and know everything, and you're not, because starting a business is a constant learning. It's a constant pivoting. It's trying something and failing, and then realizing what you learned and trying something else. I mean, I can speak to this as a business owner myself. You know, like a lot of what we teach is because we've learned it ourselves from not understanding what it means to build a website or a market or figure out how to do lead generation or close those sales, or, you know, a lot of it's just, you got to figure it out, and it can be unique to your organization. There's basic principles there, but when it comes down to it, your experience as a business is going to be different depending on who your customer is and what they need. And so a lot of it's just this process of discovery and constant learning. And that can be hard to do. So one of the biggest challenges I see for entrepreneurs is they forget that. They think they got it figured out and they just keep doing the same thing, and then it's not working the way they thought it was. And so for the support organizations, I think sometimes we want to move past the very basics, but going back to those basics over and over and over again, asking, so has your customer changed? Has the problem changed? What are you learning? Like constantly asking those questions is what's really going to help people succeed and the community change and really meet the needs in the community. So I don't know. Those are a few. I'm sure I could go on, but
no, those are exactly spot on. We see that locally. Yep. We've been asking some guests that we've had recently on the podcast that work in multiple communities that question, because I think it is important to understand, and we talk to our small business community and our entrepreneurs that, and it's also kind of part of the curriculum for Co-Starters, is you're not an island. The problems that you're experiencing aren't really that unique to you. And so when we are able to bring people together and show them that maybe everybody's experiencing the similar pain points, maybe just in different stages, if you come together and really talk about it, you can really start to work through that. But, you know, we talk about how small towns are there's a lot of similarities across the country. A lot of things that are very much alike.
But something I would say too, to the point that you made, Rebekah, is even people that are already operating a business and maybe have been for 5 or 10 years. We've seen it here. Yeah. We've had people that have been in business for years come and take this course, because sometimes you lose sight of who your customer is.
Yeah.
And what problem are you actually addressing? And look at those numbers. Should you be changing your price point based on the current economy? Or maybe you haven't done any kind of a price change since you opened your doors. And so this program is good if you have an idea, if you have a small business that you're just starting, or if you have an existing business, which I think has been very beneficial to us as a community, because you're not going to run out of people that are going to be interested in this program. And, you know, that was one of our concerns when we started, because our first cohort was 14 people. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we can't sustain that. Well, frankly, you don't want to. That 6 people in a cohort's like the perfect number for us, we've found. And I mean, we've continued to have 4 to 6 people in every cohort that we've done, and they run the gamut. So I just personally and professionally want to thank you for the work that you've put into this program, because for us as a community and from our entrepreneurs and business perspective, this has been an invaluable tool for us. And if you ever need testimonials, anything that you ever need, we are here for you.
They already asked us for that.
I know they did, but you know.
But and it is true. I mean, we've even had, like you've talked about, people that are in business. We had a professional come through the program that ran a business for 30 years, and she was going to retire and pivot and go into a totally different industry, and took the course just to make sure that she really had, you know, zeroed in on those important pieces before she launched that kind of second career, which she's doing phenomenally well. But I just have to echo what Renee said. Thank you for all of the learning, and thank you for the testing and the work that you have done. because it shows. We're a community of about 13,400 people. And when we finish this current cohort, which is our 6th cohort, we will have served 40 entrepreneurs. And at the end of the day, when you run those numbers, those 40 entrepreneurs, that represents 27 operational businesses in our community. And I believe there's 8 that are currently in operation. My math might be a little askew. And then those remaining decided that it wasn't the right time for them. But that's such an important decision to make. And I think that's something that we also found out through Co-Starters. You know, like if you decide this isn't the right time for you, that's wonderful, because you're not getting started on the wrong foot. But you take the Co-Starters core curriculum. You know, we tried the generator last year with youth, advising hours, and the wayfinding. Wonderful. I mean, so yeah, you've taken so many of those components and really made them easily accessible and usable, that allows communities, I think, of any size to make a tremendous impact. So thank you.
Well, thank you. You guys have made my day. That's what keeps me going is, you know, as I said, I started my consulting business originally because I really wanted to help organizations be impactful and sustainable. I wound up shutting that down because I realized Co-Starters was a way to exponentially do that, personally. And so I'm really getting to do what I love, and get to see it affect lots of communities everywhere. And I'll echo what you're saying about existing businesses. I, as a customer, went into a business recently, at 4th generation business, and they were telling me how they're on the brink of shutting down because they can't seem to keep things going. They're just stressed out. They're about burned out. And I was like, you guys aren't charging enough. And they're like, they fix shoes. They're a cobbler. And they're the only one left in the region. So they provide a very important service. They've got a 12-week backlog. They don't have a problem with customers in the door, but they're still burning out. And they just started in Co-Starters last week. They're changing their pricing and they're changing their model because, you know, they hadn't re-examined it in a generation.
Yep.
You know, and businesses do that, but they provide really important services in communities. And so being able to provide a way, and they said, we do this because we love fixing shoes. We don't know anything about business. We just inherited it. Yep. And so, you know, there's a lot of people out there like that as well. And I love seeing those people get the help they need. So I'm excited to hear that that's happening in your community as well.
Yes. Yes. So is there anything on the horizon for Co-Starters, like as an organization, or I guess like kind of what might be next?
Yeah.
That you can disclose.
So I think the thing we are trying to figure out right now is the what's next. So we're realizing that we've built a lot of tools that get you to a certain point as an entrepreneur and as a community, but then you wind up needing this specialized help down the line. But when you need it and how you need it is very different. And so we're trying to figure that out right now. What does it look like to continue to support people? We've launched a beta test of an online platform, and we're trying things in there to see, you know, if we offer marketing classes, will people sign up, you know, at a national level if it's done via Zoom? Because we're also hearing from communities that there's a lot to do, and usually the staff is few. Usually there's 2, 3, maybe 4 people, 5 tops dedicated to this work. And usually there's a lot of demands on their time. And so we're trying to figure out that next level, like what does it look like? And how do we do that? And how do we do, you know, and so we've tried some things, we've learned a lot. I think what's next for us is more research and listening. To figure out what communities really need and what entrepreneurs really need once they have the basics down. What does it look like to actually start building and growing? So, so I think that's what's next.
Okay.
again, circle back with you guys later. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I will comment, because when we came on in 2020, it was, we had the curriculum, we came on as a community, but since then, you've built out, there's now the platform, the Mighty Networks, where, everybody can enroll and they can communicate with other class members and other people in the program across the country, across the world. And then you also have videos and tutorials, and, you're hosting meetings, and, for the communities running the programs, and you're also offering some of those programs to the entrepreneurs. And then you guys have launched your own podcast.
Yeah, we have. And we're also in the process of launching a community accelerator program. So this is for the entrepreneur support organizations. It's essentially taking them through a process very similar to what the entrepreneurs go through, but for their organizations. So we're finding a lot of local community organizations want to do this work, but don't necessarily have a plan for how it's going to get done. And especially in some of the smaller communities that lack resources. And so just like the magic happens for the entrepreneurs, we want to be able to provide that to the organizations. And again, as I told you, like that's where I'm really passionate. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to work on that project as well. So I'm currently enrolling for our community accelerator program.
Yeah, the community accelerator program sounds amazing. So yeah, that's because that is a huge need, I think, especially in smaller communities, for sure. So kudos to you. Great idea.
They're keeping me busy.
Sounds like it. But I appreciate the fact that you're also very accessible and you're very responsive. So thank you. We appreciate that too. We do.
And we really appreciate you making time to talk to us today. I don't know if you've listened to any of our podcasts in the past, but I always like to end with some rapid fire questions. So I have 4 or 5 questions I'm just going to ask you, and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Got it.
Okay. So, favorite animal?
Horse.
Ooh, that's a new one. I know. I like it. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I think we landed on invisibility.
Oh,
nice. Okay. Nice. Favorite food?
Oh, bread.
Oh, just bread in general. Okay. Okay.
Love it.
Favorite season?
Fall.
Concur completely. And favorite color?
Like a teal blue.
Okay. Nice. See, that was painless.
Just a nice.
It sounds very scary
for our listeners to know those odd little things about people.
I ride a horse twice a week when I can.
Oh, nice. See, there you go. Now we've learned so much more.
I know. It's amazing how you learn these little things about people, even favorite food, favorite color, and you throw some random stuff out there and you make connections. Like, I will now never forget that her favorite season is fall because it's also my favorite season.
And she rides a horse. Like, never every time.
I know. These are the little tidbits that you retain.
The fun facts about Rebekah. We now know them.
Not my horse, let's just be clear, right?
Okay.
I haven't gone that far yet, but
financially, that's probably much more responsible.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a lot to take on. I've done the numbers.
My mom has horses.
Help me understand how to run the numbers on that.
You got out your canvas and mapped it all out. Well, Rebekah, thank you so much for all the work that you do. We appreciate you, and we thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Well, thank you guys. I love what you guys are doing in Fostoria. And if there's anything I can do to support your work, please let us know because you guys are rocking it. I'm so glad you joined.
Thanks.
So are we.
So if you have any questions about the Co-Starters program, feel free to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce at
FostoriaChamber.com is the best way to find us and get information. Or you can call. Do you want me to give like old school phone number here?
I don't know your office number, so I wasn't going to go there.
Oh,
so you can say it however you wanted.
The easiest way to learn more is probably just go to our website. You know, that's what the kids do these days. You know, they go to like their socials or a website, not like pick up the phone and make a call.
What do you think? I'm 100?
No, but I had to take the opportunity to make fun of you.
Wow.
Because I'm always the old one, and I say the old things. So I had to bring it up.
a bone telling people to contact
I
the
do appreciate
chamber.
that. I appreciate it. But there's information there. There's a whole tab about starters and makers that talks about the programs that we offer, Co-Starters, of course, being one of them. And you can also find Co-Starters online and learn a whole lot more about the other things that they do as well.
That was a much more professional
Thank you.
response. Thank
Every
you.
once in a while, I can bring my professional A. Today, I feel like I'm on. Talk to me in 5 minutes, and I'll be off again.
All right. So with that,
Yes.
thank you for listening to this episode of Shut Up and Listen
Small Town Stories
with Sarah
and Renee.